don't leave us with the Tories. Please stay, don't leave us with the Tories. Well, I can tell you one thing. If there's a no vote on September the 18th, Cameron is toast the next day. Absolute toast the next day. And if there's the other thing is, even if there's a no vote, it will not appease the Tory right to UKIP. They will want to come more strongly and push even further and punish people of Scotland just for raising the issue. But they're told, well, look, there's another alternative. Next year you've got a chance to elect a Miliband-led Labour government. Now just have a look at the nature of what that represents. First of all, Ed Balls has made it entirely clear that he totally supports George Osborne's spending limits. Rachel Reeves has made it equally clear she supports Ian Duncan Smith's welfare caps. So they're working entirely within the agenda that's been set down by the present Tory government. But some people say, yeah, okay, but when you've got a Labour government in, then the left can take advantage of that when it starts to fail. Have a look at France at the moment. We've just had the Holland-led Socialist government in France. Who is making most headway at the moment in France? The Front National. It does not follow you do that. But they all say, well, Scotland, you've got such a good record as well. Well, this could make all the difference. Well, let's just get two things out of the way. There's only been two occasions when the vote of having Scottish MPs, Labour MPs, made a difference. The first was in 1964, and the second was in the first election in 1974. But I would like you to have a look, if you're inviting these Scottish Labour MPs down to help bail you out, what you were looking at. Miliband, I think it's pretty right-wing, but you've got to know something about the nature of the Labour Party in Scotland. Go back to the Iraq War. There was a big rebellion amongst Labour ranks on the Iraq War. Not amongst Scottish Labour, it was much, much smaller. You have a much better English Labour MPs on that. When it came to the welfare cap the other week, where Miliband and Balls told people in the Labour Party, oh, we've got to vote alongside that, there were 11 people who voted against. Only 2 of those were from Scotland, 2 out of 49. The only place that had a lower dissident was Wales, but actually your record was better in England. This is the sort of nature of the Labour Party you've got. Also something else. People down here will probably know that the present, if you like, the present reason why the campaign for self-determination has got bigger and bigger probably dates back to the poll tax, when Thatcher tested out the poll tax first in Scotland. I was that time chair of the Lothian Federation, and I co-chaired the Scottish Federation of Anti-Poll Tax Unions. People resented the fact that Scotland was test-bedded for this reactionary piece of legislation. What do people don't realise? Today there's been demonstrations in London to defend the NHS against the privatisation. Well, how did you end up with some of the worst privatisation in here? When there was a Tony Blair government, he put through a bill in Parliament that became an act bill through Parliament to partly privatise the hospitals and the foundation hospital type scheme. How did that get through? There was a rebellion, a big Labour rebellion. The Tories abstained, hoping to catch them out. The difference between that being passing and fell to Scottish Labour MPs who rallied behind Tony Blair. Please note that in Scotland, the NHS hasn't been privatised. Even the Labour Party didn't, in Holyrood didn't vote for the privatisation there. But these people from Scotland voted and have given you what you've got there. So that's where the blame lies there. Also, I remember a Labour Party leadership contest, and there was actually a socialist, John MacDonald, who I know a lot of time for, who emerged as a candidate. Right, he didn't get too far. But if you go to Scotland, when the Labour leadership elections came up in 2010, who were the candidates? First of all was a man called Tom Harris. If you saw that in Scottish papers, you would not be able to tell them apart from UKIP. It's always attacking migrants. Tom Harris is the UKIP light wing of the Labour Party. I think down here you've got Blue Labour, which are very similar. Then we have Ken McIntosh, who's an uber Blairite. And lastly, the winning candidate was Johan Lamont, who is very much Miliband's poodle. There was no left in Scotland that could even find a candidate. That's how bad things were. Now let's have a look at Johan Lamont. What's her record in this campaign? Well, one of the first things she did, she says, if we got rid of power, we would not allow a something for nothing society. We would end universal benefits. She was cheered to the rafters by this Scottish Tory people in Holyrood, particularly Ruth Davidson. And she set up something very well-named committee called the Midwinter Review, and it's about ending universal benefits in Scotland. So that's the first thing. The next thing she said, well, where does she look for as an alternative? What's the economic model she's looking for? She said, what I really respect is the remarkable international city-state of London. That's Johan Lamont in Scotland saying these things. I doubt many people, councillors in the north of England, be the Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle, will be very impressed by that. But that's young. How can you say that in Glasgow if you're not somebody's tame poodle? And whose arguments are you using there? Lastly, what is our own opinion of Scotland? Again, a quote from Johan Lamont. Scots are not genetically programmed to make decisions. So that is the Labour leader in Scotland. And again, another argument though, well, at least the UK state is a framework which unites the working class across these islands, makes it easier to take joint action together. I'm somebody who does not believe solidarity should be a passive reflection of an existing state structure. I'm also somebody who notices that the main reason there isn't solidarity action across the UK are the anti-trade union laws. And yes, they were introduced by the Tories. What did the Blair government do about those? Kept them in place. Has Miliband any idea, is he going to abolish these? Certainly is not. But the only way you can deal with these is actually to define them. What the Sparks were doing down in London and other areas last year is the only way you can deal with these. Active solidarity. But let's go to Glasgow itself. You know, Glasgow often seen as the heartland of the Labour Party. How is it drawing workers together? Well, Glasgow City Council used to run a whole lot of services. What they decided to do with these services is run them under things called arm's length management organisations. So they're no longer directly run by the council. The effect of this means that people, formerly, particularly in Unite, had one employer, and now got a multiplicity of employers, and they cannot take any form of solidarity action against it. So not only is the Labour Party not uniting workers across the UK, it's dividing them even in one city in Glasgow. People in the same office cannot take solidarity action with others because they're working with different arm's length organisations. And better together is a premonition of the future. It's an alliance of, as I say, Tories, Lib Dem and Labour. But if you go for the next, if you want to get any further, is they also run in 7 councils, joint councils with Tories in Scotland. So my answer is to that is we are fighting on another issue, the issue of Scottish self-determination, a democratic issue, and this issue raises the fundamental nature of the UK. It questions Westminster in the House of Lords setup. It questions the lack of proportional representation, and it questions the deep corruption. These are much more fundamental issues. A diminished UK will no longer possibly have its UN Security Council seat. The US and US will not have its tame lapdog anymore. Trident is also up for question. So these are the issues that we are raising. These are the issues that, as a radical independents come in, and many others will want to raise. I'm hoping when people ask people to come to some of the other ones, please make sure you see that the main issue here is the democratic issue, which affects everybody in here. And if you vote yes, it's a better future for everybody in these islands, not just for Scotland. Thank you.